The human sat close to the dying fire, its last flames licking at the cold night air. The stars above were strange, brighter than on Earth, and the land around him was quiet except for the sound of distant wind. He thought he was alone, far from the village of aliens that had looked at him with distrust earlier that day. They had not welcomed him, they had not trusted him, and so he had camped alone in the wild. But then, a sound cut through the night. It was soft at first, like the snapping of a twig. The human froze, his hand reaching for the knife at his belt. Another sound came, this time a trembling breath. Then, from the shadows, a small figure stumbled forward. It was a girl, not human, but alien. Her eyes were wide, glowing faintly in the moonlight. Her clothes were torn and her body shook with fear. She looked too young to carry such sorrow in her face. She fell to her knees near his fire, her voice breaking as she whispered, "Please, brave human, help me." The human stared, not sure what to say. The aliens of this land had wanted nothing to do with him. They had called him an outsider, a wanderer. But here was this small girl, begging at his feet. Her tears glistened, her hands trembling as they reached toward him. "My sister," she cried, her voice weak but desperate. "They took her, the raiders took her. I have no one else, no one to help. They all turn away, they all fear, but you are different. You must come with me. You must save her." The human's chest tightened. He had seen fear before, but this was more. It was not just fear, it was hopelessness. He looked at the girl and saw that she had run through the night, to find him alone, small and fragile, yet still holding on to a single thread of hope. "Why me?" the human asked, his voice low. "Why not your own people? Why not your elders, your warriors?" The girl lowered her head, her voice barely a whisper. "Because they will not fight. They bow to the raiders, they call them too strong, too cruel. They say my sister is already gone. But I will not believe it, I cannot. You are human, you do not bow, you fight." Her words struck him harder than any blade. He had thought of leaving this land, of walking away from their distrust. But in this girl's eyes he saw something different. She did not see him as a curse, she saw him as strength. The wind blew, carrying the faint sound of howls across the hills. The girl flinched, clutching his arm. "They will hurt her before sunrise," she whispered. "Please, if we wait, it will be too late." The human's jaw tightened. He looked down at her small, shaking form. He could turn away. He could tell her it was not his fight. But even as the thought came, he knew he could not. He could not watch her crumble in despair. He could not let another innocent suffer while he sat safe by his fire. He rose to his feet, pulling his knife free. His eyes burned with quiet resolve. The girl gasped, hope flooding her face. He nodded once, firm and steady. "Show me the way," he said. The girl stood, her legs weak but her spirit unbroken. She wiped her tears with the back of her hand and pointed toward the distant dark hills. "That way," she said, "beyond the cliffs. Their camp is there. Guarded, dangerous, but I know the path. I can lead you." The human threw dirt over the fire, smothering its last glow. The night grew darker, colder. The stars above seemed to watch as the two unlikely companions began their journey. A human and a fragile alien girl, bound together by a desperate mission. As they walked into the unknown, the girl whispered again, her voice trembling but full of belief. "You are brave, human. You are the only one who can save her." The human glanced at her, his mind heavy with what awaited them. Raiders, blood, danger, and perhaps death. But he also felt something else, stirring in his chest, a fire that no cold night could kill. For the first time since he had stepped on this alien soil, he no longer felt alone. He had a purpose, and it was written in the eyes of the girl beside him. Heartending. In the distance, across the hills, a faint fire burned in the night. The raider camp, waiting like a hungry beast. The night was cold as the human and the alien girl moved across the land. The fire from his camp was behind them, now swallowed by darkness ahead. The hills rose like black giants against the starlit sky. The girl walked close beside him, her small hands clutching the edges of her torn cloak. Her eyes darted nervously from shadow to shadow, as if every rock might hide danger. The human kept his knife in hand. Every sound sharpened his senses. The rustle of leaves, the cry of a night bird, the crunch of gravel under his boots. He had fought before, but never like this. Never with someone depending on him so completely. The girl's breath trembled, but she did not stop. "You should turn back," she whispered suddenly. "It is too dangerous. The raiders are not like others. They kill without mercy. They take what they want. They do not fear even the strongest. Clans." The human glanced at her, his voice low but steady. "And yet you came to me." Her glowing eyes lifted to his face, filled with a strange light. "Because you are different. You are human. My people say humans are cursed, but I do not believe them. I believe you fight when others fall silent." The human said nothing, but her words tightened the grip on his blade. They moved deeper into the hills, the air colder now. The ground sloped upward, forcing their bodies to strain. At the top, they crouched, gazing down into the valley. There, faint and far, a line of red sparks glowed. Torches. The raider camp. The girl shivered, pointing with a trembling finger. "There, near the cliffs. Do you see the fire? That is where they keep the prisoners. That is where my sister is." The human studied the valley carefully. He could see shadows moving, figures patrolling, their weapons flashing in the firelight. Too many for a direct fight. But he said nothing to the girl. He would not crush her fragile hope. They descended the slope, careful to move silently. The ground was rough, covered in alien thorns that cut at their legs. The girl winced but kept moving. At one point she stumbled, nearly falling. The human caught her arm, steadying her. "Careful," he whispered. "If they hear us, it's over." She nodded quickly, her lips pressed tight. Her determination burned brighter than her fear. Together they pressed on, keeping to the shadows, hiding behind rocks and jagged trees that twisted upward like claws. Then a sound froze them both. Voices, rough and cruel. Two raiders stood nearby, their armored bodies blocking the narrow path. The girl's breath hitched. She clutched the human's arm. The raiders laughed. Speaking in their guttural tongue, the human listened, not understanding the words, but the tone was enough. These were not men of mercy. Their weapons gleamed in the torchlight. The girl leaned close, whispering urgently, "They speak of my sister. They say she will be offered at sunrise. If we wait, it will be too late." The human's jaw clenched. Sunrise was not far. He looked at the two raiders and thought of the firelight beyond. He could fight them now, but it would risk everything. He could also wait, but waiting meant the sister's fate might already be sealed. They crouched low until the raiders moved, on slipping into the camp's outer shadows. The smell of smoke grew stronger, mixed with something fouler, burnt flesh. The girl pressed a hand over her mouth, tears brimming in her eyes, but she kept walking. At last, they reached a rocky ledge. From there, the whole camp stretched before them. Dozens of raiders sat around fires, their faces painted with ash and blood. Tents were scattered like bones, and in the center stood a wooden cage. Inside it, a figure knelt, her body weak and still. "My sister," the girl gasped. Her hands shook as she pointed. "She is still, alive. I can feel it. We must get closer." The human studied the cage. His heart tightened as he saw the chains that bound the figure inside. She was alive, but barely. If they waited, sunrise would bring her doom. The girl's voice cracked, her words trembling. "Will you help me? Will you fight for her?" The human turned his gaze from the cage to the fires, to the painted faces, to the sharpened blades that gleamed in the dark. He had fought before, but never against so many. He was only one man. Yet when he looked back at the girl, her glowing eyes filled with trust and fear. He knew his answer. He could not walk away, not now, not ever. "Stay close to me," he whispered. "We will find a way." The girl nodded quickly, clutching his arm. The campfire crackled below. Them. The raiders laughed, their voices like beasts in the night. Hook ending. As the human's eyes fixed on the cage, he knew the real battle was about to begin, and dawn was racing closer with every breath. The human and the alien girl crouched behind the rocks, The raider camp spread out below them like a nest of vipers. The firelight flickered on painted faces, cruel and sharp. Their laughter rose with the crackle of flames. But beneath it, there, was something darker, the sound of chains rattling, the sound of despair. The girl's hand shook as she pointed to the wooden cage. Her sister was there, weak and still. Her head hung low, but now and then, a faint movement showed she was alive. The human's eyes narrowed. His heart grew heavy. He had promised the girl he would help, but the camp was crawling with enemies. As they crouched in silence, two raiders came closer, speaking in harsh tones. The girl pressed her ear to the wind, trying to catch their words. Her face went pale. "They speak of her," she whispered. "They say she will be offered at sunrise. They laugh about it. They say no one dares to stop them, not even our own people." The human frowned. "Not even your own? Why?" The girl's lips trembled. She hesitated, then spoke. "Because they fear. They believe fighting the raiders will only bring death to their families. They call my sister already lost. They tell me to forget her. But I cannot. I will not." Her voice broke, but she pressed on. "And they speak of you too. They call you cursed. They whisper that you bring danger with every step, that wherever a human goes, blood follows. That is why they turn from you. That is why they will not help us." The human's grip tightened on his knife. His chest burned at her words. He had felt the cold stares of the villagers, the way they avoided him. But to hear it spoken so plainly cut deeper. He looked at the girl, waiting for her to turn away too, but her eyes were bright, glowing faintly with determination. "I do not believe them. You are not a curse. You are hope. You are the only one who will fight." Her words struck him, stronger than any blow. He had carried the weight of being an outsider for so long, but here, in the desperate whisper of a trembling alien girl, he found trust, something no one else had given him. They watched as the raiders gathered around the fire. Two guards paced near the cage, their weapons glinting. The sister lifted her head weakly, the firelight catching her hollow eyes. The girl gasped, covering her mouth. A single tear slid down her cheek. "We must go now," she whispered. "If we wait, the sun will rise and she will be gone, forever gone." The human studied the camp carefully. He counted the raiders, he watched their movements. There were too many. But he knew there would never be another chance. He turned to the girl, his voice low, firm. "Then we move before dawn." The girl nodded, though fear shone in her eyes. She clung to his arm, her small fingers trembling. "Promise me," she said. "Promise me you will not leave her. Promise me you will not leave me." The human met her gaze, his voice steady. "I will not. I swear it." They crept closer, using the shadows of the rocks to cover their approach. Every step was a risk. Every sound of gravel shifting beneath their feet threatened to reveal them. The girl's heart raced, her breath shallow, but she did not stop. At one point, they pressed themselves flat against a jagged wall as a pair of raiders passed by. The men spoke in low voices, their words dripping with cruelty. The girl strained to listen. Her face grew tight, her teeth clenched. "They speak of betrayal," she whispered. "They say one of the villagers gives them food, gives them secrets. That is why they are never challenged. That is why they are so strong. Someone from my own people feeds their strength." The human stomach twisted. Betrayal. Not only fear, but treachery. That explained the silence of the village. That explained why no warriors came. The raiders were not just feared. They were fed. The girl shook her head, pain filling her voice. "My people abandoned us. But you are all I have. You must not let them win." The human placed a hand on her shoulder, his voice like steel. "We will not let them win." The camp loomed larger as they drew near. The heat of the fires reached them. The smell of sweat and smoke grew stronger. They could see the cage clearly now, the sister inside, too weak to even cry out. The human's breath slowed. He gripped his knife tighter, his body tense. He knew the battle would come soon. He knew blood would be spilled. The girl looked at him, her voice trembling but filled with belief. "You are human. You do not bow. You do not fear. You fight. Hook ending. The first light of dawn began to edge over the horizon, and the human knew their time was almost gone. The final choice lay before him. Strike now and risk everything, or wait and lose the sister forever. The human and the alien. Girl crouched in the shadows of the jagged rocks. The raider camp flickered below, its fires burning like the eyes of beasts in the night. Smoke curled upward into the dark sky, carrying the smell of blood, sweat, and old ashes. The girl trembled but held her ground. Her glowing eyes never left the cage where her sister was chained. "We cannot wait," she whispered, her voice tight with fear. "The sun will rise soon. If we wait, she will be gone." The human's gaze hardened. He studied the camp, counting the movements of the guards, every step they took, every pause, every careless laugh. He could see the rhythm of the camp, and he knew there would be only one chance. He leaned closer to the girl, his words sharp, but calm. "Stay behind me. Do not run unless I tell you. We move fast and silent. We cannot let them know until it is too late." The girl nodded quickly, though her hands trembled as they clutched her torn cloak. Her heart pounded so loudly she feared the raiders would hear it. Still, she whispered back, "I will not fail you. I will not fail her." The human gave a final glance at the sky where the stars were fading. He knew dawn was racing toward them. With a breath, he slipped from the cover of the rocks and into the shadows of the camp. The girl followed, her small steps quiet against the dirt. They moved like shadows, passing between tents and broken walls of stone. The raiders laughed around their fires, their backs turned, their voices full of cruel jokes. The smell of roasted meat filled the air, making the girl gag, but the human pushed forward, his eyes fixed on the cage. Halfway through the camp, a problem came. A raider sat alone, sharpening his blade, his back half turned. His eyes flicked toward the shadows as if he sensed movement. The human froze, pulling the girl close to the ground. They held their breath, waiting. The raider squinted into the dark. His knife gleamed. He muttered something under his breath, then spat and turned back to his task. The human exhaled slowly, guiding the girl past with silent steps. They reached the far side of the camp. The cage was close now, only a dozen steps away. The sister's face could be seen clearly, bruised, pale. Her lips cracked. She stirred weakly, lifting her head as if sensing them. The girl's breath caught in her throat, a sob nearly breaking free. The human pressed a hand gently over her mouth, shaking his head. "Not yet," he whispered. "We wait for the moment." But the cage was not unguarded. 4 raiders stood nearby, 2 pacing with spears, 2 sitting with cruel smiles. One of them poked the cage with a blade, laughing as the sister flinched. The girl's nails dug into her palms, rage burning through her fear. The human studied the guards. He counted the timing of their steps. He measured the distance. His mind worked like a hunter's. Then he leaned down to the girl, whispering his plan. "You must throw a stone far to the left. When they turn, I strike. You run to your sister, but do not open the cage until I clear the guards. Do you understand?" The girl nodded, her eyes wide but filled with trust. She picked up a small rock, her hand shaking. The human's muscles tensed, ready. She threw the stone. It clattered loudly against a pile of broken wood. The guards snapped their heads toward, the sound rising in anger. The human moved faster than breath. His knife flashed in the firelight. He cut one raider's throat before a cry could rise. The second spun, but the human was already on him, driving the blade deep. The other 2 shouted, but the girl was already running toward the cage. "Hold on, sister," she cried. Her hands reached through the bars. Her sister's weak fingers brushed hers, tears sliding down both their faces, but the fight was not silent anymore. The camp stirred, torches raised, voices shouting. The alarm began to spread. The human stood over the fallen guards, blood dripping from his blade. His chest heaved, his eyes locked on the growing firelight of more raiders rushing their way. The girl screamed, "They are coming!" The human turned, his face like stone, his voice strong despite the danger. Then we fight until there is no breath left in us. Hook ending. Beyond the fires, a giant shadow began to rise, heavier and darker than the rest. The raider chief had heard the alarm, and now he was coming. The camp was no longer silent. Shouts echoed through the night. Torches blazed as raiders poured from their tents. Their weapons glinted red in the firelight. The alarm had spread, and the human and the girl were trapped in the heart of the enemy. The girl clung to the cage, her sister's weak hand gripping hers through the bars. Tears streaked down her dirt-stained face. "We will free you, I promise, just hold on," she whispered. The human stood between the cage and the rushing raiders. His knife dripped with the blood of the fallen guards. His body ached from the fight, but his eyes burned with resolve. He knew there was no turning back, only forward, only through. The first raider charged, roaring like a beast. The human sidestepped. His blade flashing, the raider fell. Clutching his throat, another swung a heavy axe and sparks flew as steel met steel. The human ducked, drove his knife upward, and the man collapsed. But there were too many. Their numbers grew with every heartbeat. The ring of firelight closed around them. The human's breath came heavy, sweat mixing with blood. Still he fought, every strike filled with desperate strength. The girl screamed as one raider lunged toward her, his spear aimed at her chest. She froze in terror, but the human was there, grabbing the spear, twisting it from the raider's hands, and slamming the man into the dirt. Blood sprayed across the ground. The raiders shouted curses. Some called him demon, some cursed him as cursed blood, but others hesitated, fear flickering in their eyes. They had never seen a human fight like this. They had never seen such defiance. The girl pressed her forehead to the bars, whispering to her sister, "Hold on, please. He is fighting for us. He will not stop, not until you are free." The human's arms shook with exhaustion. His knife was slick, his clothes torn, cuts lined his body, but his spirit refused to fall. He fought like fire, wild and unbroken. Then the ground trembled. A shadow fell across the firelight. The raiders grew silent, stepping back. Their eyes turned to the massive figure that emerged from the largest tent. The raider chief. He was taller than any man the human had faced. His body wrapped in scarred armor. His eyes glowed with cruel fire, and in his hand was a massive blade, black as night. The other raiders fell silent, their mocking laughter replaced with expectant grins. The girl gasped, her voice breaking. "That is him, the chief. He is the one who ordered my sister taken. He will not show mercy." The chief stepped forward, his voice booming like thunder. "A human dares to spill blood in my camp? A human dares to stand where even warriors fall to their knees? Fool, I will tear you apart." The raiders cheered, their voices rising in cruel delight. They formed a circle, torches raised high, eager to see blood spilled on the dirt. The human stood firm, his chest heaving, his body trembled with pain, but his eyes met the chief's with steady fire. He lifted his knife, ready. The girl pressed her hands to the bars, her voice desperate. "Please, brave human, do not fall. You are all we have. You are all she has." The chief laughed, swinging, his blade through the air. The sound was like thunder cracking. "I will show your people why humans bow, why they hide in shame. When I am done, your bones will feed the fire." The human tightened his grip. His mind flashed with the girl's tears, her sister's weak face, the betrayal of the villagers, and the mocking words that called him cursed. He refused them all, he refused to bow. The firelight danced on his knife as he stepped forward. The raider chief raised his great blade. The air grew heavy, every raider holding their breath. The girl's voice cut through the silence, filled with trembling belief. "You are human. You fight. You never bow." Hook ending. The blades clashed, sparks burst into the firelit air. The fight for life had begun, and only one would rise from the blood and flames. The clash of steel rang through the night. The human and the raider chief stood in the circle of firelight, every eye fixed on them. The raiders howled and cheered, their torches blazing. Their chief was a monster of muscle and rage, his black blade swinging with the weight of thunder. The human braced himself, his smaller knife looking weak against the giant's weapon, yet his stance was firm. His chest rose and fell, his arms bloodied and cut, but his spirit burned brighter than the flames. The chief struck first. His blade came down like a hammer. The human rolled aside, the earth cracking where the blow landed. Dust and sparks flew into the air. The raiders cheered louder, shouting for the human's death. The human lunged, slashing across the giant's side. The blade bit shallow, leaving only a line of blood. The chief laughed, his voice booming. "Is that all, human? You cut me like a child scratches stone." Again, the massive blade came down. The human raised his knife, barely deflecting the strike. The shock rattled his bones. His knees buckled, but he refused to fall. He pushed back, his eyes never leaving. The girl clung to the cage, her voice desperate. "Do not give up. You are not like them, you are stronger than them." Her sister, weak and broken, lifted her head, her lips moving in a whisper. "Fight. Please. Fight." The chief swung again, a wide arc that could have cut the human in half. The human ducked low, rolling beneath the blade. He slashed at the giant's leg, another shallow wound. Another roar of laughter from the monster towering above him. The raiders stomped their feet, chanting their chief's name. The ground shook under their rhythm. The human's chest burned with exhaustion, but he kept moving. Every strike, every dodge, every breath was survival. The chief taunted him. "Your kind is weak. Your kind is nothing. That girl believes in you. But when you die, she will see the truth. Humans are born to kneel, not to fight." The words struck the human harder than any blade. But instead of breaking him, they lit. A fire inside, his jaw clenched, his grip tightened, he shouted back, his voice cutting through the night. "I will never kneel, not to you, not to anyone." The raiders fell silent at his words, their chants breaking for the first time. Some frowned, some shifted uneasily. The chief snarled, enraged by the defiance. He raised his blade high for a killing blow. The human waited. His heart pounded. He could feel every drop of blood in his veins. He watched the giant's movement, every muscle, every shift of weight. Then at the last second he moved. The blade struck the earth, carving deep into the dirt. The human leapt onto the flat of the weapon, running up the black steel. His knife flashed in the firelight. He drove it into the chief's shoulder. Deep, enough to make the giant roar in pain. The raiders gasped. Some cried out in disbelief. The chief staggered back, clutching the wound. His rage burned hotter. His voice shook the camp. "You will suffer for that, human." The human landed on his feet, his chest heaving. His knife was slick with blood, his arms trembled, but he stood tall. His eyes locked on the towering enemy. The girl screamed encouragement, her voice breaking but fierce. "You can do it!" "He is not a god. He is just flesh and blood. End him." The chief swung again, slower this time, his rage blinding him. The human ducked and dodged, striking where he could. Each cut was small, but each one stole strength from the monster. Blood stained the dirt. Firelight danced on the two fighters. The crowd's cheers faltered, whispers spreading like smoke. They had never seen their chief struggle, never seen him bleed so much. The chief roared one last time, raising his blade for the final strike. The human met him head-on. His knife plunged deep, finding the place where armor failed. The giant's eyes widened. His roar turned into a choking gasp. He stumbled, his massive blade falling from his hand. The earth shook as he collapsed to his knees. Blood poured across the dirt. The human staggered, nearly falling. But he stood over the broken chief, his knife dripping red. The raiders stared in silence, the firelight flickering across their stunned faces. Their chief was down. The human had done the impossible. The girl cried out, her voice filled with joy and disbelief. "You did it! Brave human! You defeated him!" The chief's last breath rattled from his chest. His eyes burned with hatred until the very end, then dimmed. His body fell heavy against the earth, hook-ending. The camp was silent, but silence was not peace. Dozens of raiders still surrounded them, their chief dead at the human's feet. The question hung heavy in the firelight. Would they scatter in fear, or rise as one to avenge him? The body of the raider chief lay heavy in the dirt, his black blade fallen beside him. The campfire burned brighter as if the flames themselves had swallowed his rage. The raiders around the circle stood frozen, their faces pale in the firelight. They had seen their leader bleed. They had seen a human do the impossible. For a moment, no one moved. The only sound was the crackling of fire and the heavy breaths of the human. He stood tall despite his cuts and bruises, blood dripping from his arm. His chest rose and fell like a storm, but his eyes burned steady. The girl clutched the cage, her voice breaking with joy. "You did it, brave human. You killed him. You saved us." But the silence did not last. A murmur spread through the raiders, some snarled, some shouted in anger. Their voices rose like a wave of hatred. "Kill him, kill the cursed blood," they cried. Others stepped back, fear in their eyes, fear of a man who had brought down their chief. The human lifted his knife again, his arms trembling but ready. He knew he could not fight them all. His body was near its limit. His wounds burned, his breath was shallow. Still he refused to bow. He would fall standing, not kneeling. The girl cried out, her voice strong despite her fear. "Look at him. Look at what he has done. Your chief is dead. His strength is broken. You call him cursed, but he is braver than all of you." The raiders hesitated. Their eyes darted between the girl, the fallen chief, and the human covered in blood but still unbroken. Some stepped back, throwing down their weapons. Some spat and turned away into the shadows. Only a few remained, glaring but unwilling to strike. The human used the moment. He ran to the cage. His hands gripped the bars, pulling with all his might. The wood cracked. The chains rattled. With a final roar of effort, the bars splintered. The girl rushed forward, pulling her sister free. The sister collapsed into her arms, weak and trembling but alive. Tears ran down both their faces as they clung to each other. "I thought I lost you," the younger girl whispered. "I thought they had taken you forever." The sister's voice was faint, but her words were clear. "You did not give up on me. You brought him. You brought hope." The human stood over them, his chest heaving, his knife still in hand, his body ready for the last stand if needed. But the camp was changing. Raiders slipped away into the night, leaderless, broken. Their fire no longer roared with pride but burned with emptiness. The girl turned to him, her glowing eyes filled with gratitude. "You are brave, human. You are more than they said. You saved her. You saved me. You saved us both." The human lowered his knife, his body swaying with exhaustion. He wanted to speak, but words failed him. Instead, he gave a small nod. The girl's sister reached weakly toward him, her voice trembling. "You risked your life for strangers. Why? Why would you do this?" He looked at her, his voice rough but steady. "Because no one else would. Because no one should face the darkness alone." The firelight flickered across their faces. The sisters clung to him as if he was the last light. Left in the night, for the first time since he had come to this land, the human did not feel like an outsider. He felt needed. He felt trusted. The younger girl pressed her forehead against his arm, whispering, "You are ours now, no matter what they call you. You belong with us. You are not cursed. You are hope." The human's chest tightened at her words. For so long he had carried the weight of rejection. Now in the arms of two alien sisters who believed in him, he felt a bond stronger than blood. The dawn finally broke, the first light of the sun spilling across the valley. The fires of the raider camp burned low, the enemy scattered. The night of fear was over, but the world ahead was still uncertain. The human looked to the horizon, his knife heavy in his hand. He knew word would spread. A human had slain a raider chief. A human had defied fear. More battles would come. More enemies would rise, but he also knew he would not face them alone. The girl's voice broke the silence, soft but filled with belief. "Brave human, wherever we go next, we go together." He glanced at her, then at her sister leaning weakly. On her, for the first time in many nights, he allowed himself a small, tired smile, hook-ending. The rising sun lit their faces, and though danger still waited beyond the hills, a bond had been forged in fire, unbreakable, unyielding, and destined to change everything